There have been no football games this weekend. The Premier League was officially cancelled in light of the Queen's passing, and it has been a pretty bland and bleak weekend. I've had to watch Serie A, I've had to watch La Liga, some entertaining games there. Valverde scored an absolute cracking solo goal, but just hasn't quite been the same. And the fact that it was just so abrupt and Premier League football was snatched away from us out of nowhere, it hasn't been the best weekend. But in light of that, Chelsea get a bit more time to prepare. Graham Potter gets more time to sort of implement his tactics and what he wants to do with this Chelsea team. He gets a bit of a break, and Wednesday against RB Salzburg will be his first game as Chelsea manager. And let's see if he can implement some of the strategies and the ideas that have got him this job so soon in his first game. I mean, of course, we can't expect miracles, but it's going to be super interesting to see what he does in that game against RB Salzburg. I would have liked him to have had this first game against Fulham, but that might have just been me being very impatient. So it is good that perhaps he's had a bit more of a break and a bit more time to get to know his players, and the players vice versa have become a bit more familiar with his ways, and they're going to be maybe a bit more in sync come Wednesday in the Champions League fixture. But it's an appointment that has come out of nowhere, and I think after having a few days getting used to the idea, getting familiar, I think that it's probably a good idea to start making some wild predictions and some ideas of what we can expect from Graham Potter's first season in charge at Chelsea Football Club. It is a job that is massive, a ruthless job, but we know that we are going to need to give him time to adjust. There's going to need to be some sort of transitional period, some grace, but I think after going over it for the past few days that there are still going to be some minimum requirements. I can't expect Chelsea or the players, the fans, the board, anyone to be happy with a finish outside of the top four. I just can't see it, because this is a club that needs to be playing Champions League football. These players need to be playing Champions League football, and after spending that ginormous amount of money in the summer, I don't really see how outside the top four is going to suffice. I think Graham Potter has been appointed to bring harmony amongst the team and definitely to build for the future, but I don't really think it's out of his realm to not get top four. It's sort of a minimum requirement this season. I don't even think like a cup run. We should be winning cups, but I don't even think winning a cup and finishing outside of the top four would suffice unless that cup's the Champions League. So it's a bit of an ask for Graham Potter to achieve in his first season at Chelsea, but I just can't see it going any other way. For us to finish outside of the top four would, for me, mean that there would be a lot of inconsistent performances, a lot of points still dropped. So I'm not sure that will bode well for him come the end of the season. I think one of the most important things also under this new Graham Potter regime is definitely bringing out the best out of certain players. There are some players there that are definitely adrift and didn't really give their best performances under Thomas Tuchel as of late. So it's going to be up to Graham Potter immediately to try and get the best out of some of those players. And there's always been a bit of a power play at Chelsea with some players and the manager. This kind of reminds me of when Frank Lampard was in charge, and players like Jorginho, Alonso, Kovacic, the more like European players that have perhaps won things abroad, that are a bit more established players, more seasoned professionals, seem to give Lampard a bit of a hard time and not really play for the manager as he would have liked during Lampard's tenure. So it's going to be really difficult for Graham Potter to win some of those players over, or perhaps he's just not even going to entertain them, and players like Jorginho are just not even going to make that starting 11. Potter might just start straight away with a team that is in his plans as we move forward in the next season and the season after that. So you can imagine players like Broja, players like Conor Gallagher, Mason Mount, Reece James, of course, Chalobah, a lot of the homegrown Chelsea players getting more of an opportunity under Graham Potter than perhaps the likes of Jorginho, Kante's, Aubameyangs, Ziyech's. I'm not sure if these players have got a real future at Chelsea with Graham Potter coming in. Surely that must have been part of the acquisition, and the appointment of Graham Potter was to build for the future, and these players are perhaps less a part of the future. It's going to be really interesting what happens with Aubameyang. Like, he was Tuchel's man. It brought him in, albeit on the last day, pretty much transfer deadline day signing, and is he even going to play? Is he even going to get a game? I'm sure he will, but you do fancy Graham Potter to play Armando Broja a lot more in this scenario. I mean, we're just speculating at this point, but you would imagine Armando Broja is going to get a lot more game time, so he can be pleased with Graham Potter coming in, as will the likes of Conor Gallagher, Loftus-Cheek. I think all the British homegrown players are going to get more of an opportunity under Graham Potter. That's sort of my guess. Cucurella is obviously going to be very interesting with what happens with him. I haven't been too impressed with his Chelsea career thus far, but I'm sure Graham Potter knows how to get the best out of him and sort of give him a bit of a strategy that he's surely used to playing under Brighton. But I would hope that doesn't mean that Ben Chilwell gets outcasted with Graham Potter coming in, and I'm sure he won't, because Graham Potter is a manager who's done a lot with very little resources, and now he's got a plethora of resources. He's got too much resources almost, and it's going to be really interesting with how he deals with that. But I would imagine he's been brought in to still get the best out of a lot of the young players that we have and build for the future. I think players like Christian Pulisic is also going to be very interesting with what happens with him. Seemed to really fall out of favour with Thomas Tuchel towards the end of the season and the beginning of this season. Definitely was not a guaranteed starter as he was in the beginning. It was a Lampard signing, and I get the feeling Thomas Tuchel didn't fully rate Christian Pulisic to start in that 11. He had him at Borussia Dortmund, and I think he was one of the players who actually broke Christian Pulisic, but from articles that I've read, he never really trusted him in that position week in, week out, and he was more of a fringe player. And obviously Pulisic then came to Chelsea eventually to sort of get more first team football, and Thomas Tuchel then came in and sort of put him back in rotation. So Christian Pulisic is going to be very interesting with what happens with him under Graham Potter. Another player that's going to be really interesting is Wesley Fofana. I think under Potter's tutelage, he will get the best out of him, and he sort of seems like the type of player that Graham Potter would have loved at Brighton. Fast, quick, ball playing centre back who can ping balls over the top and not afraid to dribble it out in dangerous areas. So that's sort of the bold football that Graham Potter is known for, and I really think that that's a player I'll keep a close tab on. Obviously Chelsea bought him to start no matter what, and I think he was always going to be a big part of Chelsea's season this year and next year. But under Graham Potter, things sort of change. I think Kalidou Koulibaly is not as much a Graham Potter type of player as Wesley Fofana is. The good thing is, obviously, Graham Potter likes to play the three at the back as Thomas Tuchel did. So we could see some changes there. But I just really think that Trevor Chalobah could be really utilised under Graham Potter's management. And that might mean that Kalidou Koulibaly might fall out of favour. He has had a bit of mixed bag for me so far, Koulibaly, but if it means that Chalobah comes through and takes more of the reign and Koulibaly becomes more of a fringe player, we'll see. There's a lot of games this year, so I say fringe player loosely. Like, I think there's going to have to be healthy squad rotation no matter what, and we have got a lot of depth. We just need to make sure that we're getting the best out of these players this season. So for me, just these are the first initial thoughts when I think about Graham Potter and what would be determined as a good season. Of course, we want to be playing better football than what we have been playing. The football's been awful. We've been toothless in the attack, and we need to score more goals. Raheem Sterling was obviously very highly favoured by Thomas Tuchel, and it will be interesting if he's as favoured as much by Graham Potter. I think Mason Mount hasn't had a great start to the season so far, but I'm sure that's something that was going to change regardless of who was manager. Like, Mason Mount is a quality player, and he was probably just having a bad run of form. But let's see. Like, this, normally new appointments, a new change in manager can really can drastically change the direction of a team and how they're playing and the momentum and the morale. I think the only time that really didn't happen was when Ralph Rangnick took over United's, Solskjaer's United. That kind of just seemed to be the same story. I can't see this being the same case though, so it's either going to get really bad from here or really good. So I am optimistic. I'm sad Tuchel has gone, but we've got to move forward. We've got to set ourselves some realistic expectations, and for me, it's top 4 no matter what. That's a minimum requirement. But guys, let me know what you think. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. I'll see you in the next video.